Monarchs, this is Mrs. Dutro, and today we're going to talk about framing evidence in your essays. So your essential question for today is, how can I cite evidence from the text without disrupting the flow of my arguments? But first, I'm going to tell you a story. So back in 2017, my husband and I went on our honeymoon in Italy, and it was gorgeous. We went to Florence, and we got to go on a bunch of tours around a bunch of Italian wineries. Just saw some really beautiful places. We went to Venice, and it was so romantic. And I had a mission on my honeymoon in Europe for the first time in my life, possibly for the last time in my life, on this once-in-a-lifetime trip. I decided I really wanted to get a beautiful piece of art to bring home and put up on the walls of my house. So we're walking around enjoying Italy, and I am just looking for art, and we see these beautiful gondolas and the gondoliers. We get to go in one. It's just gorgeous. But I'm not finding any art that is really grabbing me until finally we come across this guy. He had a stand with all these paintings, and it was just, there was this one sitting there facing out, and I fell in love with it. And I went up to the guy and I said, "Hey, how much for that one right there?" And he said, €100. Well, we had already spent all of our money, and all we had left was a $100 bill of American dollars. We did not have €100. And so I look at my husband. I'm like, "Please." And he's like, "This is our emergency cash." Not to mention that a $100 bill is like only €80. So we were still €20 short. So this guy, he says, "Go to this ATM, go here and here and here, but I'm going to pack up in 10 minutes. So, if you make it back in time, great. If not, I'll be back in a couple of days." Well, we were leaving the next day. We didn't have time for that. So I start talking to this guy, and I told him that I'm a teacher in the United States. And he said, "Oh, you're a teacher? I give it to you for a $100 bill. No problem. You can have it. Fellow teachers, we work so hard. Here you go. You can have it." So I look at my husband. "Please, please, can I have this beautiful painting?" He's, "Oh, this is our emergency cash, babe. If we spend this money, then we're not going to have any more cash until we can make it to an ATM. I don't know. This makes me nervous. I want this painting. This is an emergency. It is an art emergency. I want this painting." So I got my painting, and here it is. It's beautiful. I love it. So we roll up this painting, and it's too big to fit in a suitcase. It's too big to fit all the way in the backpack. So we have this rolled up painting, and it's in a tube, so it's protected, but we have to basically carry this tube all over Italy with us, because after we left Venice, we went to Rome, and we spent 4 days in Rome, and then we went on a Greek cruise around a bunch of Greek islands. It was an amazing trip. It was so wonderful. So we had to carry this thing everywhere. It did not fit in a suitcase, so we had to take it on the plane as a carry-on, and we were on so many planes. Oh my gosh, it was totally worth it. I love this painting so much. So we finally get it home. I'm ready to put it up in my hallway, and I knew exactly where I wanted it the whole time. So I had to figure out how to hang up this gorgeous painting that I loved, that I had dragged all over Europe, that I got a killer deal on, that would have cost way more money if I bought it in the States, because it's a pain in the butt to get them from Europe to the United States. So how am I going to hang this in my house? Well, I have several options. I could tape it, but do I really want to do that? First of all, it's probably going to ruin my painting. And second of all, it looks like crap. I mean, if I just went through all this effort to get this painting, am I going to really tape it to my walls like I'm in some old rundown frat house? No, I'm not going to do that. So So I could thumbtack it to the walls. Looks a little bit better, right? But it's still kind of tacky. Yeah. And not to mention it still pokes holes in my paintings, so it's still going to ruin it. So no, I'm not going to do that. What I really need to do is frame it. And when I frame it, it is going to be perfect. So I go out, I get a frame, and I hang it up, and now it's hanging in my house, and it's gorgeous. So what's the point? Why are we talking about this? Because just like with my Italian painting, it is super important that you frame your evidence in order for it to actually contribute to your essay, to contribute to your purpose. Because had I put my painting up on the wall with tape or with a thumbtack, that would have just ruined the aesthetics of the whole house, of the whole painting. It'd be pointless. Same thing when you don't frame your evidence in your essays. So dropping a quote into your essay without introduction or citations is like taping an expensive painting to the wall. It destroys all of your credibility. This defeats the whole purpose of including evidence in your essay. We include evidence in our essays in order to be a credible source of information. We have to back up our claims with evidence so that our audience knows that we're not just making stuff up. So to build the first half of your frame, you need to introduce your quotation with a signal phrase. So signal phrases can introduce the source title. They can give credit to the author of the source. They can identify the tone of the speaker. They can provide context for the quotation, and they can do a few other things as well. But these are the big ones that I want you guys to remember. So some sample signal phrases could be according to so-and-so, whoever's speaking or sharing. So-and-so states, so-and-so writes, so-and-so explains, or so-and-so points out, so-and-so notes, so-and-so claims. And notice how each of these signal phrases has a comma after the signal phrase. And then you have your quotation leading into that. Signal phrases introduce your quote. They help you to flow into your quotation from your own ideas in the text. So to build the second half of your frame, you need to cite your source with a parenthetical citation. So parenthetical citations provide your reader with additional information about the quotation source. In English class, we use MLA formatting, and so MLA parenthetical citations have specific characteristics. If you are citing evidence from a novel, a short story, or a printed article, your citation is going to identify the page number. If you are citing evidence from a poem or from a song, they're going to identify the line number. And if you're citing evidence from a passage on a standardized test or another text with numbered paragraphs, then they're going to identify the paragraph number. You will use the page number in parenthetical citations way more frequently than line numbers, and you'll use line numbers way more frequently than paragraph numbers. You will rarely use paragraph numbers in your parenthetical citations. And parenthetical citations identify the author of the source text only if the author's name isn't already mentioned in the signal phrase. And remember, that is because the parenthetical citation only makes up half of your frame. The other half of your frame is the signal phrase. So these two things work together to create the frame as a whole. So you don't need to say the author's name twice in one frame because it only needs to be stated once. And then finally, the period always goes after the parentheses in your parenthetical citation. It does not go within the parentheses. So let's look at some examples and some non-examples of parenthetical citations. This first one, Steinbeck, page number 17. Well, you do not need to say page and you don't need the number sign. So this is a non-example. Instead, you just need to have the author's last name and the number. nothing fancy. So the second one, Anaya 135 through 136, that is perfect. You just have the author's last name. You have the page numbers that the quote appears on. In this case, it looks like this quotation goes from the end of one page to the top of the next. Let's look at this one. O'Brien, page 7, paragraph 4, line 12. Holy moly, that is way more information than anybody needs. Do yourself a favor. Don't count paragraph numbers in a novel. Don't count line numbers in a paragraph. It's not necessary. The only time you need a line number is if you're quoting a song or a poem. The only time you will need a paragraph number. And then finally, you don't have to say page 7 because there's no need to say page. Just the formatting of this citation indicates to your reader that that's the page number. So this one is wrong on several counts. This next one, in parentheses 112, that's perfect as long as the author's name is in the signal phrase. Same with the one after that, 9 through 12, great as long as the author's name is in the signal phrase. We have this one, kid, comma, 201. That one is really close. The only thing this one has that it shouldn't have is that comma. So nix that comma and you're good to go. And then the last one, Kendi 15, that's perfect. So here we have a bunch of perfect parenthetical citations. We have fixed all of the ones that were wrong on the last slide. And so your parenthetical citation should look something like this, depending on the signal phrase. So to complete your frame, you are going to have a signal phrase on the left. You're going to have a parenthetical citation on the right. In writing, this will look like a signal phrase leading into your quotation and then finally ending with that parenthetical citation. So let's look at some examples of this in practice. Here we have an example of a signal phrase that uses that verb notes. And the person who is doing the noting is the narrator. And because we don't mention Steinbeck's name in the signal phrase, we have to put his name in the parenthetical citation. So this one altogether reads, the narrator notes, Kino watched with a detachment of God while a dusty ant frantically tried to escape the sand trap an antlion had dug for him. And when reading these aloud, we don't read the parenthetical citation aloud. It is there for us to reference if we need it, but we don't need to read it aloud. In this example, we have Steinbeck describes Juana's poultice as being, as our signal phrase. And in this case, the verb for our signal phrase is describes. And this is actually a built-in quotation. So what we are doing here is we are building our sentence so that the quotation finishes the sentence for us. We don't need a comma to set up our signal phrase because it is all part of the same sentence. And because we have Steinbeck's name in the signal phrase, we do not need it in our parenthetical citation. So we only have the page number in our parenthetical citation. So this one reads, Steinbeck describes Juana's poultice as being as good a remedy as any and probably better than the doctor could have done. But the remedy lacked his authority because it was simple and didn't cost anything. Let's look at another one. So in this case, our signal phrase is, the doctor demonstrates his shameless racism when he angrily exclaims, and then because, again, we don't mention Steinbeck's name in the signal phrase, we do need to have it in our parenthetical citation. So this one altogether reads, the doctor demonstrates his shameless racism when he angrily exclaims, have I nothing better to do than cure insect bites for little Indians? I am a doctor, not a veterinary. So to sum up, you need to have a signal phrase that leads into your quotation, and then your quotation ends with a parenthetical citation. So here are some examples of strong signal phrases and parenthetical citations. I suggest you take a screenshot of this image and save it somewhere on your desktop so you can easily refer back to it when you are embedding evidence in your own writing. And that's all I have for you for today. If you have any questions, you can email me at kelly.dutro@aps.edu. And I hope you have a wonderful week, Monarchs.